This is an upper body, somewhat total body workout for your luteal phase. This is one of my favorite ways to work out during this later kind of second part of the luteal phase when maybe energy levels have dipped a little bit. You might be experiencing the onset of PMS symptoms, maybe just not feeling 100%, but you still want to move your body. You still want to show up for this practice. This is a great workout for that. We stay mat bound the entire time. So we're kind of in our tripod stance. We're on the back, on the belly, but we're staying very grounded. So it doesn't require a lot of activation. We certainly won't be getting into the high intensity working zone. So it's something that on those mornings when maybe you just don't feel like showing up, it's one of those that you can take it on because it's not so intense as to be intimidating or overwhelming. It's really accessible. So the first part of this practice includes a circuit of strength and core work. So we are putting the body in a position to leverage upper body strength, but one that requires a lot of stability. So that involves single-sided exercises and some of the tripod exercises where we are recruiting belly strength to stabilize the body. We have 4 rounds of that circuit, and then we're moving into a quick 5-minute glute finisher just to kind of fire up the lower body and create some strength and activation there. So for the practice today, you will need 2 sets of weights. I recommend something in the medium range, light to medium. So it is an upper body focus for the weighted portion. And then we're kind of just positioning the body in a way that activates the lower body. So for me, that meant 15 pounds. Even the 15 pounds got a little bit heavy as the weight started to come overhead in kind of some deeper mobility ranges. So something in the 8 to 15 pound range will be perfect and ideal for the heavier sets. For your lighter set, we do have one exercise where we're in a prone position, so we're activating some of the smaller muscles in the back and shoulders. I have a very small set of 3-pound dumbbells that I'm using. You could use body weight only. Certainly that allows you to activate the posterior chain just as well. So really err on the side of lighter weight for that movement pattern itself. And then for the resistance band, you just want something that you can push against a little bit. So it can be a resistance band, either the elastic or I have the fabric bands for this practice. You can also use a smaller headband or a sports bra that just has that little bit of elastic that can give and give you a bit of resistance to press up against. So we start with our weighted portion, we end with that glute finisher, and then you'll be on your way. I did mention, and I will mention in the movement tutorial, that this workout does not include a warm-up or a cool-down. It's pretty complete in and of itself, and you can kind of just get your body ready for the movement. You don't need a full, long warm-up to get ready for this one. It's gentle enough to kind of enter right away, but I do recommend at least kind of warming the spine, kind of the 6 movements of the spine, forward, back, side bending, and rotation before you jump into anything with weights. I will include a link to a very quick warm up and cool down in the description of this video so that if you want to create that complete practice and add those elements to bookend the workout, that option is available for you. And we'll start with the movement tutorial. So anything that involves weights where we are using interval timing as the structure and there's not a lot of time for transition and setup, I like to offer that movement tutorial so that you can watch it in your own way, on your own time before you're ready to work out so that you can choose your weights accordingly. You can kind of test out the moves and see what might be the most appropriate weight selection. And you can kind of digest and internalize the movement cues so that when we add the timer, when you're in the container of the workout, you're not having to think of those things. You're not having to kind of leak energy by creating the form and the technique. So we will get started now with that movement tutorial for this workout. This is our grounding mat-bound strength practice for the luteal phase. Before we get into the workout, I'd like to go through a movement tutorial where we'll break down all of the movement patterns and the exercises that we'll be using. So you have that information in your body. You can choose your weights accordingly before we hit the timer and begin. So our first movement pattern here is a single leg bridge with a single arm bicep curl. Chest press. So we're coming into our bridge position. So you have your weights handy, your medium weights, something challenging but not too heavy. You'll take the weights directly overhead. So right at the nipple line, find some tone there by kind of magnetizing the weights to the center. And then you'll come into your single leg bridge. So I'll start on the left side. We press through the heel to lift the hips up. Make sure that your knee is directly over the ankle. The other leg can float straight or stay bent. And then with that same side, chest press. So the elbow comes out wide. Bring it as low as you can and then squeeze it up to the top. So the belly is braced. You're connecting low ribs and hip points together. And you're really pressing through the heel in that static bridge position. We'll have one interval there and then we'll switch sides. So you'll come up to the other side. Take the opposite elbow out wide. And we'll be here for the next interval. So that is our single leg bridge with a single arm chest press. So we're working on balance there. You'll find that your core has to work to stabilize the entire time. After that, we are coming into our weighted dead bug. So you'll transition staying on the back through that rest period. And then the dead bug, you can either have your knees bent at 90, try not to bring the knees too close. So knees are over the hips, or you can have the legs straight up. We're starting in the same position with the chest press, but this time the palms are facing each other. And this time we're moving opposite arm and opposite leg. So right arm, left leg reach, and then come back to center. Left arm, right leg reach, and come back to center. You'll find here that your lower back may want to arch. Can you really keep that drawing together of the low ribs and the hip points to brace the belly and support this movement pattern? So that's our dead bug with the weight there. And then we'll come up to a seat. So all of these movements are staying very close to the ground. We're in the luteal phase, so we're keeping the energy very balanced. We're not creating too much activation, but just kind of that steady state throughout. And our next movement is the Z press. So we're coming into, you can have your legs wide apart, or they can be closer together. Straight legs here. But you are on the ground. The key here is to tilt the pelvis forward so that you're on the very front of the sitting bones. So you have that anterior pelvic tilt. And then the shoulders are directly over the hips. We're bringing the weights to shoulder height, elbows in nice and close. Brace the belly, so feel that connection in the low belly. And then we're taking the weights overhead. So exhaling on the way up and coming down on the inhale. If this gets to be too much, you can always alternate sides. If the weight gets to be too much altogether, you can simply alternate with body weight only and really focus on mind-muscle connection, on activating the muscles there to push the weights overhead. After that round, we are coming into our tripod row. So you'll keep your weights here, coming into the tripod position. So low ribs and hip points together, shoulders over the wrists, hips are directly over the knees. From here, we're doing opposite arm, opposite leg again. This time, left leg reaches, right arm rows. So the elbow stays nice and close. Try not to let the hip or the shoulder pop open. So keep hips and shoulders square to the floor and come down. Row, so the elbow squeezes into the side, shoulders are relaxed away from the ears, and you're taking that weight straight up and back. And alternating sides here. So it's sort of a march with the arms and alternating extension with the legs. From there, we will switch from the heavier weight selection to something lighter. So I have a 3-pound set of dumbbells. You can use anything between 1 to 5, maybe 8 pounds if you're feeling pretty strong. But here I would err on the side of lighter weights and just focusing on activation and form. So here we're coming into a prone position, lowering onto the belly. Arms are reaching straight out overhead. You have the palms facing down, and keep the lower body glued to the mat. So from the hip points to the tops of the feet, really anchor down and activate there. From here, swimmer. So you're going to take the arms out wide, elbows bend, straighten the arms, extend, really feel the triceps, and then come back out the way you came in. Lift up, try to get as much height as you can, chest off the mat, straighten the arms, come back and reach. So that's our swimmer with a tricep extension there, coming through and straightening. We have that 4 times through. We'll be working with 40-second intervals with 20 seconds of rest. The key is not to max out those intervals, but it's really just keeping the structure for us. So move slow, move steady, and keep that pace that doesn't activate you too much, but keeps you kind of in that elevated heart rate zone, and one that's sustainable with proper mechanics and expert form. After we complete that circuit 4 times, we're coming into our glute finisher, so just make sure you have a resistance band close by. We'll be popping that on, working through some hydrant movements, some donkey kicks, and glute bridges at the end, but I'll walk you through that as we get there. So that is our movement breakdown and tutorial. Make sure you have your weights ready. We've got that medium to heavy set. I'm using 15s, and your very light set, something in the 1 to 5 pound range, plus your resistance band. Again, you can always do it without the resistance band. Maybe you're using a headband or a sports bra, but if you have one of those handy, grab it and let's get started with our workout. We are ready to begin our grounding workout for the luteal phase. This one does not include a warm-up, so if you need a quick 5-minute warm-up, make sure to click on the link below in the description of this video so that you can prepare your body for this movement practice. We'll get started in about 15 seconds here. Otherwise, coming down into our bridge position for single leg bridge with a single chest press. So weights are straight overhead, over the nipple line. We'll start with the left side. Press up into that single leg bridge and chest press on the left side. So here, make sure the hips are level. Make sure your elbows coming out nice and wide, and you're squeezing the weights together at the top. The back of the neck is neutral. Hip points and low ribs drawing together to brace the low belly and keep the foundation of this movement, so the base of the movement stable, so that you can move that single arm and balance. So you're not coming out of balance each time, but really you have that strong foundation. Last 3, 2, 1. You can keep the weights overhead or maybe bring them down to your side. I'm going to scoot to the side for a little bit more space here. These 20-second rest intervals are really just enough to set up for the next movement. So as you're ready, take the weights overhead. We'll go in 3, 2, 1. Right side bridge, single leg bridge. Right elbow comes out wide, chest press. So inhale as that elbow comes out to the side. Exhale forcefully on the way up. So the hips stay level. Connecting with your breath here. So as best as you can, keeping the head neutral. So avoid moving the neck side to side. We're really squeezing the weights together to create that activation. 3, 2, 1. Come down. Preparing now for our weighted dead bug. So we can stay on the back here. You have your knees either at 90 with the knees directly over the hips, so we're not letting them come too close. You want to keep the belly activated here. And then we reach the weights straight overhead, palms facing each other, opposite arm, opposite leg. Here we go. Reach overhead and come back. Notice if your low back wants to arch, can you keep it nice and flat by drawing the low ribs and hip points together, especially as you take the weight overhead. Keep the belly braced. You'll start to feel this depending on your weight selection. You might feel the back working and the belly working to draw that weight back to the starting point. and rest. Slowly transition up to a seat. This is about as elevated as we'll get through this practice. It's nice and grounding in that mat-bound position. Coming into the Z press, you can have your legs out wide or straight out in front of you in more of an L shape. We're going in 3, bringing the weights to the shoulders. 2, 1. Let's begin. Press it overhead. So here, as you take the weights overhead, notice if the low ribs want to flare out. Keep them drawing back while staying expansive across the chest and heart in the upper body. So we have those two things working sort of in opposition sometimes. So if you're trying to brace the belly, the upper back rounds, or if you're trying to open the chest, maybe the low belly flares. But can you work with those 2 points, those 2 alignment cues, and have them work together to create stability? Last one, and rest. Coming into our tripod stance now. So hips are over the knees, shoulders are over the wrists. The weights are about shoulder width apart. We're opposite leg, opposite arm for a single arm row and a leg extension. Here we go, 2, 1. So right arm, left leg, row and extend. Left arm, right leg, row and extend. Key here, keep the crown of the head reaching forward. So you create that long spine, lots of space in the neck and shoulders. Then we want to keep the belly braced so that the hips and shoulders aren't popping open. You have that stabilization effort that makes this a core workout throughout the whole movement practice. We're doing a lot of movement single-sided to really activate those accessory muscles that support stability and rest. Our next movement pattern, we are switching to our lighter set of weights for the prone swimmer. So we're reaching back, extending, and overhead. Coming into our prone position here. Get your lighter weights ready. Reach them directly overhead. And then we lift up. So lower body, very heavy in this movement. Anchor the hips, anchor the legs down. Lift up, squeeze the elbows behind you, and come out and forward. Lift the heart, lift the chest. Keep the legs heavy. Stay in control. So there can be kind of some swinging that happens to get these weights up and back. But instead, can you stay slow and controlled? Feel the upper back working. These muscles that keep us upright. And rest. That is our first of 4 rounds. You can set your lighter weights off to the side. And we will come down into our single arm chest press here. Coming into your single leg bridge, take it out and up. Out and up. Breathing here, inhaling on the way down, pressing up to squeeze. You've got this. Keep the belly stable and strong. Nice and slow, squeezing at the top. Last 3, 2, and 1. You can either hold the weights or set them off to the side. And we will get ready to go to the second side here in just a few seconds. So you can create more space if you need it. Coming into that single leg bridge, here we go. And press. Right elbow comes out to the side, squeeze to the center. Keep the belly strong. Inhale on the way down, exhale on the way up. Down and up, nice and strong. Feel the glute working in that isometric hold, really pressing through the heel to keep that activation. Try not to let the hips dip or sag. Here we go. Last 3, 2, 1. Let the weights come down. Preparing for our weighted dead bug here. So knees come to directly over the hips, or you can keep the legs straight if you'd rather. Your choice. The weights come directly over the nipple line. Palms are facing each other. And let's begin. Reach it out, arm overhead, and back to center. Keep the belly strong. You should really feel it working, especially at the end of the range of motion there. And back together. You can always ditch the weights and focus on the core activation here. If you have the weights, really working on the muscles in the back to bring the weight back to center. Control the descent so we're not letting the weight drop the arm back, but instead we're keeping the muscle under tension the entire way down and the entire way up. Kind of lost it there. Got a little too heavy. And slowly come up. So we're in our resting period. We're coming into our Z press. So again, your legs can be straight out in front of you, or you can come into more of a straddle, just making sure you have that interior tilt. So you're on the front of your sits bones. Bring the weights to shoulder height. We're pressing overhead in 2, 1. Let's go. Overhead and down. Press it up. Bring it down. Keep the chest elevated. Keep the low ribs hugging back toward the spine. Stabilize the whole way through. Again, we're in the luteal phase, so we're not looking for max effort, but you want something steady state. You want something where you're getting the circulation moving, you're tapping into a bit of strength, but without dipping into the high intensity zone. 2, 1, and rest. Come into your tripod. Take those heavy weights with you, or medium weights. Shoulders are over the wrists, hips are over the knees. We've got about 10 more seconds here. You might shake it out. Shake out the wrists. We'll go in 5, 3, 2, 1. So opposite leg, opposite arm row. Again, using the stabilizing force in the belly to keep your hips and shoulders square. Try not to let the shoulders shrug, so there's lots of space between the shoulders and the ears. Just be mindful of your alignment. So knees stay under the hips. I start to notice mine creep a little bit closer to my hands as the movement gets a little bit more challenging. As you extend the leg, can you feel the glute activate? 2, 1. Rest. Set your weights off to the side. Reach for your lighter weight. We're coming into that prone position. We're almost halfway through this weighted portion. Coming down onto the belly. Reach the arms overhead. Keep the lower body heavy. And here we go. Lift it up. Straighten the arms. And come back through center. Reach overhead. Lift it up. Press through the belly. Reach back. And come through. So reach down. Keep the low belly stable. You're massaging the low belly. Can help alleviate maybe some PMS that's coming up. If you have any bloating or any digestive issues, I know for me a little bit of low belly massage goes a long way. And we're using light weights here, so not so much pressure. Last one. And rest. Coming back now onto the back for our third round. Preparing for that single leg bridge with a single arm chest press. So lowering down, get your weights ready. I'll start with the left side. So right leg comes up, left hip lifts, and let's begin chest press on the left side. Really squeeze the glutes. Keep that steady isometric contraction. Notice I often share alignment or movement cues as they come up for me. So what I'm seeing here is my reps get a little bit faster when they get harder. So can you slow it down and breathe? Layer the breath onto the movement. Layer the movement onto the breath and rest. Coming back. So often when it gets challenging, my mind wants to check out, and that usually equals kind of more erratic reps. So instead, can you focus? Can you keep that control? Weights come up, hips come up. Let's begin. Right elbow out to the side and squeeze. Out to the side, really hug to the midline as you come up. So you're activating the chest. Stabilizing, pressing through that right heel. Head and neck stay neutral. Notice the quality of your gaze. Is it hardened? Can you soften your jaw so that you're keeping those energy leaks from happening? You're focusing just on the chest and the glute here. And rest. So preparing now for the weighted dead bug. So you can kind of adjust yourself on your mat if you need to. We'll go in about 10 seconds. So the belly's nice and flat, hip points and low ribs together. Legs and arms come up. Palms facing each other. Let's begin. Opposite arm, opposite leg. Really create that engagement on the way up. So last round, this weight got a little bit heavy and it got stuck. So I'm going to kind of be mindful of that as I get to the extent of the range of motion and really work on engaging right below the shoulder blade. Happened again. So I'm going to take the weight overhead and come back. Interesting how it only tends to happen on my dominant side. I think where I tend to reach a little bit further with range of motion and rest. Coming up, if that happens to you where your weight selection gets a bit heavy, you can always drop the dumbbell or take a rest, recalibrate, and come back in. Coming into our Z press now. Anterior tilt in the pelvis. 2, 1. Let's press those weights overhead and back down. Press it up. See if you can get your elbows behind your ears at the top. So working on shoulder mobility here as well as strength. Notice as you do that, do your low ribs flare out? Can you hug them to the hip points? And then lift your hip points up to meet your low ribs. So you've got that magnetizing together to brace the belly. Last few seconds here. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Come down to rest. Find your tripod stance here. Hands and knees, shoulders are over the wrists, hips are over the knees. We'll go in 10 seconds. So again here, elbows stay hugging into the sides, but try not to dip the shoulders down. Keep them nice and level. You have that neutral position. So the shoulders not dipping up or down. And really activate the glute as you lift and extend. You can point or flex the foot. Just notice how that changes the sensation and the activation in the legs. So this is an upper body focused workout, but really we're incorporating lots of lower body stability, lots of balance. Last 3, 2, 1. Set those weights off to the side now. Coming into our prone position with the lighter weights for the swimmer and tricep extension. So you can lower onto your belly, come into that prone position with the arms reaching forward. Anchor the lower body, and let's begin. Lift up, squeeze the elbows, straighten the arms, find the triceps, and come back through center. This one benefits from a slower pace. Create more space if you need to. Elbow squeeze in. Notice if your feet tend to pop up off the floor as you lift. Can you create that intentional anchoring? So the whole lower body stabilizing here. We're working on posterior chain here. the muscles that support our posture, and rest. Coming into our final round. We're almost there before our glute finisher. So coming back onto the back, grab your heavier set of weights for that single leg, single arm, glute bridge, and chest press. Here we go. Weights are overhead. Right leg lifts. Find your bridge, and let's begin. Elbow comes out to the side and press up. Squeeze at the top. Notice where you feel this movement. So we're focusing on the chest, but do you feel it in your glute? And do you feel it in the belly? All of these supporting actors here. Can you then kind of let that focus permeate your whole body? So the activation in the chest, can you find that in the glute? Find that in the belly, and rest. Coming to our second side now. So left foot lifts, weights come overhead. We'll come into the bridge in 3, 2, 1. Lift the hips and press. Right elbow out to the side and comes up to center. Reach and lower. Press. Breathe here, especially as we get close to the end. Let there be no urgency. Can you stay calm and focused till the very last rep? Stay stable. You're also engaging that opposite arm. I didn't mention, but it is an isometric hold there. And rest. Come back to your center position for the weighted dead bug. Last round of these. Legs come up. And the weights come up. Palms are facing each other. And we lower, alternate arm, alternate leg. I'm going to be dialing back the range of motion just a touch so I don't hit that stuck point. Reach and together. So we extend nice and long, and then we use the strength to bring the limbs back to center. So definitely getting a bit of information from my right side here. That stuck point where I have the mobility but lacking the strength. So that's one range of motion where I have an opportunity to work with more strength, taking the weight overhead and pulling it back to center and rest. That's a little bit more work that I need to do with chest and back exercises. Coming back for our Z press, so either straddle or legs in that L sit. Weights at shoulder height. Let's press it overhead. Here we go. That's 1. Count your reps sometimes. That can help, especially as the weights get a bit heavy. You can also alternate one arm at a time. If you choose to do that, just notice how it changes the stability in the lower half. We're here for 15 more seconds. You got this. Again, trying to find that mobility now with the elbows behind the ears. And rest. Come into your tripod stance. So nice to be kind of low to the ground for this entire practice. We don't get too activated. It's a great one for the luteal phase when we kind of shift into breakdown mode. Maybe we don't have access to the high intensity. 2, 1, let's go. So it doesn't mean giving anything up. We're not giving up the practice, the effort, the endorphins, the sweat. It's all there. It just has a different quality, a different frequency. So we take it slower. We're more controlled. The energy is being shifted back inward, so we're not as outward moving with our energy. It's staying inside for that reproductive mission that we cycle through each month. and rest. Those heavy weights now, we can set them all the way off to the side. We're going to be coming into our prone swimmer and tricep extensions. You can come onto the belly. This is our final round of the weighted portion. 2, 1, reach the arms overhead, lift it up, straighten the arms, and come back. Reach overhead, lift, hug the elbows into your sides, extend, and come back. Lift it up, anchor the lower body, extend, come back through center. Lift, extend, and breathe. Keep lots of space in the neck here. So reach the crown of the head out and forward. Last one here. And reach. Coming up, we have our 20-second rest, and then we have an extra rest between our circuit and the banded glute finisher. So we have a couple of options here. You are going to want your resistance band. Place it just above the knee. So you want it kind of in the meaty part of the thigh, just above the knee. Our first movement patterns were alternating sides. So we're moving through a donkey kick, side to side, and then a fire hydrant, side to side. Option to make this more challenging, start in your bear crawl stance. So brace the belly, lower ribs and hip points together, keep the chest expansive, and then you're here for your donkey kicks and your hydrants. It's going to activate a lot of muscle in the low belly to support that position. And then we have an option for a weighted glute bridge, so you can have your weights nearby. We'll be moving to a forearm plank where we're lifting and drawing the knees in, and then we'll finish with a wall sit. So we're starting with that band. Just make sure you have it handy. We'll go in about 10 seconds. We're starting with donkey kicks. In 3, 2, 1. So you have the option to be in bear crawl. We're just here for a minute in each of these exercises. So kicking back, keeping the foot flexed as it comes back, belly stays braced. You can also be with the knees down. You'll get just as much glute activation with the knees down. This is just adding a bit of core, a bit of quad activation for a full body grounding effect. We're just here for a minute. Really engage the glute as you press that foot up. Stamp the foot to the ceiling. Last few here. And rest. We have quick transitions here, just 10 seconds between each exercise. So coming into our hydrants now, and begin out to the side, alternating one and then the other. So you're either on your knees here with me, or you can be lifting the knees to a hover. They're just an inch off the mat and creating that hydrant motion. Keep the belly strong, keep the spine long. Try to let the entire lower leg move as a unit. I'm going to come down to the knees for a few breaths here. Our next pattern, we're coming into a bridge with optional weight and rest. Just 10 seconds. Transition to your bridge quickly. We're doing a butterfly bridge. So soles of the feet together. That weight can be on your hips. Lift up, press out, and down. Lift up, press out, and down. Up, press out. So you're not letting the knees come too wide apart on the way down. You want to have some space for that abduction at the top. Press out and back. Up, out, and back. So really engaging the glutes at the top. You can slow this down to keep the muscles under tension, and try not to arch the back at the top. So feel that connection, low ribs to hip points. So the belly stays nice and flat. Up, out, and back. Transitioning after this to our forearm plank and rest. You can ditch the band for this next exercise and we'll take it back on for the last one. Come into forearm plank. We're simply going to lift the leg, hug the knee in, and come back, alternating sides. So lift, squeeze the glute, round the spine, hug it in and back. Lift, hug knee into chest and back. Lift, hug, and back. So you should feel all the way around, 360 degrees around the belly working. Shoulders stay over the elbows here. So lots of space between the ears and shoulders. Nice long neck. Up, in, and out. Up, in, and out. Last few here. And out. Coming into our wall sit next. And rest. You can take your band back over your knees. Grab your weight. Find your wall. And wall sit. So you can have the weights here. It's just tiny pulses out. So you want your hips level with the knees. Press it out and out. We're just here through it till the end. Stay with it. Stay strong. You've got about 30 more seconds. So just that tiny pulse. Work against the resistance. Keep the belly strong. Give a slight posterior tilt in the pelvis. So that's curling the tailbone under. You might feel that fire your quads a bit more. 15 more seconds here. You got this. Stay with it. This is our last exercise. 8. Last 3, 2, and 1. Come out slowly, carefully, mindfully. You can ditch your band, set your weight off to the side, and shake it out. Excellent, excellent work. Give yourself a bit of a pat on the back. Celebrate showing up for yourself, for your cycle in this way. This workout that is challenging but sustainable, so you aren't going to be dipping into the red during that mid to late luteal phase. And that will show up for you later in your next cycle. It's like making investments in yourself, in your hormones, that you can then reap the reward later. So this workout doesn't have a cool down. If you need a full body cool down, I've included one in the description of this video below. So by all means, please join me there. Otherwise, I want to thank you for showing up, for letting your body be moved, and for being a part of this collective.